Since the start of U.S.-led airstrikes against Islamic State militants, Syrian government troops have pulled back in their fight against the group. But President Obama says that's not the result of any alliance with President Assad in combating those fighters, who are also known as ISIL.
We have communicated to the Syrian regime that when we operate going after ISIL in their airspace, that they would be well advised not to take us on. But beyond that, there's no expectation that we are going to, in some ways, enter an alliance with Assad. He is not credible in that country.
Moderate Syrian rebels, with whom the Obama administration is hoping to fight the Islamic State, say airstrikes allow Syrian forces time to attack them, and have turned some public opinion against the coalition, as attacks against enemies of President Assad are seen as helping him. That's led to questions in Washington about its approach, says American University professor Guy Ziv.
And that's arguably the toughest, most complicated piece of this puzzle, what to do about Bashar Assad. And there are disagreements within the administration as to whether or not the current bombing campaign is helping or harming Assad, and whether or not Assad will ultimately be strengthened or weakened by our intervention in the Middle East at this time.
U.S. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki says there are frequent meetings and discussion about U.S. strategy in Syria, but no formal review.
Are there hard questions being asked? Yes. Is there a discussion internally about how we should continue to adjust and consider a range of options? Of course. Syria is one of the most challenging crises we face, and it should come as no surprise that we're engaged in an ongoing discussion and debate about a range of options.
In some of its military options against the Islamic State, the Obama administration may find unintended consequences, says Cato Institute analyst Justin Logan.
A lot of the things that we do to try to fight terrorism in the Middle East don't have a good effect on terrorism and may even have a bad effect by making people hate us in that part of the world and thereby more amenable to the claims terrorist groups make.
How best to conduct this fight and which groups to support in what ways are questions facing both Washington and Assad ally Iran, says Georgetown University professor Nora Ben-Sahel.
If it were clear who to work with on the ground against ISIS and how that was aligned against Bashar al-Assad, everybody would have an easier time calculating its interest.
On a visit to Iraq that included talks with Kurdish leaders, the top U.S. General Martin Dempsey said momentum in the fight against the Islamic State is starting to turn, but he predicted a drawn-out campaign lasting years. Scott Stearns, VOA News at the State Department.